Hey, what is up, everybody? This is Cam Jennings coming at you on behalf of EpicConversions.com. And today I want to talk to you about ignored content. And what I mean by that is like when you create content and you feel like nobody's watching it, or you feel like nobody's reading it, or you feel like nobody's listening to it. Whatever it is, you're creating, and it feels like it's not really doing much. So this is not like it's funny, right? Because here's the thing about this, all right? When you are online and you're consuming YouTube videos, or you're consuming blogs, or you're consuming email, or you're consuming podcast content, whatever you're consuming, there's a very good chance that what was put in front of you was put in front of you by an algorithm. And the algorithm's putting winning content in front of you. Content that is proven to be successful. It's proven to keep people on the platform. And it's a certain kind of content. And if you consume enough of this kind of content, you start to feel like all content is like that. That's how it is. And when you start publishing content, if your content's not taken off the way that content's taken off, if you're not getting tons of comments the way that content's getting tons of comments, then you must be some kind of a failure. You must not be doing something right, blah, 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 blah. When the truth is, like, it's a very, very small sample size what you're watching generally, especially if you were recommended a podcast by a bunch of people because it's popular, or like an algorithm recommended something to you. You're getting a small sample size of the kind of content that's really out there on your particular subject. Even if you go to a search engine, like a podcast search engine, like Spotify, like if I go to Spotify and I type in email marketing or whatever, like I'm going to pull up like the cream of the crop. I'm not going to pull up all the content, There's a good chance I'm not going to pull up the podcast that just started yesterday, or the YouTube channel that just started yesterday, or like last week, or even last month. I'm not going to pull that stuff up. So there's a lot of people in your shoes if you're doing content that feels like it's not getting the views you want, it's not getting the likes, not getting the comments. It's just not getting the traction you wanted it to get, or that you had in mind when you started creating it. So what I would tell you is this, because I've been the kind of person like where like I've done content and it's done really well, and then I've done content that just kind of largely kind of gets ignored a little bit. It doesn't really get a lot of traction. And like, so when you think about that, we can even look at this show right here, Thoughts on a Walk. By the way, this is the penultimate episode of Thoughts on a Walk. This is the 99th episode of Thoughts on a Walk. We're going to do one more, and then we're going to wrap up season 1 of Thoughts on a Walk. And it's going to be shut down for a little while. So just this episode and one more, guys. We got 2 more episodes here, counting this one. Penultimate episode right here. When we think about Thoughts on a Walk, it hasn't gotten tons and tons of views. It hasn't really gotten tons and tons of comments. It hasn't had any viral videos or anything like that. By most people's standards of success, they would consider this kind of a failure show. This was a failure, this effort. I don't really consider it a failure. And you might think, yeah, Cam, it's weird because like you keep on doing all these little shows like Thoughts on a Walk here. They don't really seem to get a lot of traction, but you just keep on doing them. And you don't really seem to change how you do them, right? And they'd be right. People would be right. I changed my theme, like Thoughts on a Walk. The theme is basically using unused capacity is what I think Dan Kennedy would say, unused capacity. But basically it's like, I'm already doing a walk. I'm already doing this. Why don't I use this time to also just pull out my phone and talk while I'm walking? That was the whole premise of this show. So it's really just about an experiment using just unused capacity, And so just want to kind of leverage that. And then the one I did before that, Index Card Insights, was based on just like points, like index cards with bullet points. So that's kind of what those shows were about. And they were pretty similar. They were just basically me sitting in front of a camera and talking. And people might say, well, how come you're doing these shows? They're not really growing. No one's really engaging with them that much. Like, why does it matter? Like, why do you keep doing it? What motivates you to keep doing it? You know, and to this, I would say two things. Number one, if you are doing shows like this and you are really, really strongly dependent on them growing, you need them to grow, then yes, you should be adjusting what you're doing. If you do something for a couple months and it's not working, you should be trying to get better. You should be trying to improve. You should be trying to improve your headlines, improve your thumbnails. If we're talking about YouTube videos, whatever you're doing, you should be looking to adjust after a couple months if things aren't going the way you want them to. That's the first thing I would say. Now, why haven't I done that? Because I do these shows mostly for my existing audience. I don't do these shows like to be some kind of YouTube mogul or to grow like crazy. And I talked about that in the last episode when I was talking about podcasting. So I won't go into that. But there's something else I want you to realize that I did not go into in the last episode. And that's like, no matter what kind of content I create, whether it's YouTube channel videos or podcast episodes or whatever it is I create, like I always create it with a mindset on infrastructure, okay? So I view the content that I create like an asset. Like, this is the 99th episode of Thoughts on a Walk. Then I'm going to do episode 100 tomorrow, and then I'm going to wrap this show up. But man, that's a nice little bundle right there. That's 100 episodes of Thoughts on a Walk. I can bundle that up. I can take it off of YouTube. I can put it in a membership site. Or I could sell it, I could license it to other people. I can rip the audio from these episodes. I can remaster the audio so that they have a nice even keel, nice even audio sound. Because I filmed a lot of these episodes while I was walking, so there was some wind in some of them. So I want to like kind of do some noise cancellation on them. But the point is, like, it's 100 episodes of content. Like, it's an asset that I can use to build my infrastructure. It just adds to my infrastructure. I can leverage it in a lot of ways. I can leave it on YouTube, and I can use it just for views or to funnel traffic into my email list, because that's pretty much what I promoted in Thoughts on a Walk. I promoted my email list every single episode. But I can do a lot with it. You know what I mean? I can use it as an affiliate bonus. There's so much I can do with it just because I created the content. You know what I mean? And that mindset of while you're creating that content, while I was creating this content, while I was on episode 52 or episode 49 or episode 37, and like if that episode didn't get any views, I didn't really get disheartened, because I knew I was building something regardless if anyone watched it or not. You know, if no one watched it, okay, that's fine. Nobody watched it. I know I'm building something. I'm building an asset that I can use for a lot of different things. So that's kind of how I look at Thoughts on a Walk. That's how I look at every piece of content that I create. It always is from the mindset of I'm building infrastructure. I'm going to get mine out of this show, out of this podcast, out of this video. Whatever it is, I'm going to get out of it. I'm going to get something out of it. No matter what, it's going to happen for me. And that's how I look at it. And like when you're creating content, that is how you should look at it. Especially if you're creating free content and you don't feel like you're getting the traction that you want. You don't feel like it's growing the way you want it to. You're getting frustrated. You feel like you're putting a lot of work into these shows. No one's paying attention to it. No one's listening. Don't feel like that. Stay the course. But what I would say is you should definitely set limits to the shows that you do. Don't just plan to do shows infinitely. You know, break them up into seasons. You know, Thoughts on a Walk, it was always scheduled for 100 episodes. 100 episodes, season 1. You know, and now will I come back for a season 2? Who knows, you know? It might just be a one-off, 100 episodes of Thoughts on a Walk, and, you know, that's it. You know, or I might bring it back. I did this one show it was several years ago, but it was called The Brick Report, you know, and it was like, I think 12 episodes, but I ended up doing the 12 episodes. That was season 1. And then many years later, I brought it back as a print newsletter called The Brick Report. I basically revitalized the concept the concepts of that show and kind of turned it into a print newsletter. And it worked out. So a lot of times, like the way I view it, in the terms of infrastructure, when you think about the content you put out in terms of infrastructure, like I look at it like when you create an asset like this, Thoughts on a Walk, it's something that you can use in a lot of different ways. I remember reading this interview from Disney like a long time ago. This was way before they started deciding they were going to get all political and be all weird. But they were basically saying that like they love creating sequels for movies because it's way easier. It's easier because they've already created the world, they've already created the characters. A lot of the groundwork's already been laid. It's already been done. So it's cheaper, faster, and easier to create sequels, right? Well, that's how I look at like when I create like content series, like this Thoughts on a Walk series. Like the groundwork's already been laid. It's already a themed series, It's easy to come back and do another season of it, or like Index Card Insights, or like One Step Away before that, which was really geared towards just like newbies. Like it's like once you got the groundwork laid for what something is and how you want to do it, it becomes easy to come back to it. It also becomes easy to change it to something else. Like if you want to take like some of it and like change it to a different format or whatever, like I did with the Brick Report. So anyways, that's what I would say. I guess what the point that I'm trying to make is when you create content, don't get frustrated if you're not getting the views that you want to get or you're not getting the traction that you want to get from it. You really need to see the long view of it and consider the fact that you are building an asset for your infrastructure. So that's the main point that I'd like to get across today. So anyways, I hope that's helpful to some of you guys out there. That's all I got. If this content resonated with you, be sure to get over to my website, epicconversions.com, and join my newsletter. It's a free newsletter. I put out content 3 to 6 times a week. I'd like to think I put my best free content out by email. So that's all I got. Hope to see you in the inbox. All right, peace now.